In this video, we're going to explore the 7 most common reasons people are easy to manipulate and how you can better protect yourself. Starting off with number 1, you're empathetic. Empathy can be our superpower, right? It helps us put ourselves in someone else's position. We can see things from another perspective or imagine what it must be like to be them. That can be helpful, can be great. It can allow our relationships to be closer, more connected. However, it can also cause us to be more susceptible to manipulation. Because if we can put ourselves in someone else's position, see things from their perspective, we can find ourselves, kind of minimizing some of the hurtful or hateful things they've done or said. We can consider, they said their dad was really rude and mean when they were growing up. That's why they're doing this. And we can find ourselves in a way kind of trying to quote unquote make sense of their bad, or abusive or even manipulative behavior because we know things about them or we feel for them. This can also cause us to feel sorry for someone, right? If we feel for them and know something about their past, we can just find ourselves overlooking bad behavior and engaging with a relationship that maybe we should have never started in the first place. We have to balance our empathy with self-protection. That doesn't mean we can't feel for other people, but that shouldn't cost us health, happiness, or safety in a relationship. If we find our empathy is causing us to minimize bad situations, overlook bad behavior, or try to kind of make sense of abuse that's happening, that's when it's getting in the way. And instead of putting ourselves in their shoes, we need to get back into our own selves and recognize that the behavior that is happening to us isn't okay. And we have to protect ourselves from it. Maybe remove ourselves from a relationship or put a boundary in. But we can't just only see things from their perspective. That can put us in some damaging situations. If you find yourself being manipulated, it's not your fault. These things that we're talking through are things that might make it easier for people to take advantage of you, but that still does not make it your fault. It's great to be empathetic. Just remember, you deserve relationships that are based on mutual respect, not manipulation. Reason number 2, you want to be liked. Let's be honest, we all kind of want to be liked. And if we have a really strong desire for other people to accept us and like us, that can lead to people-pleasing behavior. And that unfortunately can make us more vulnerable to manipulation, because if we're always looking outward to other people, trying to make them happy, people who like to manipulate will jump on that. They will exploit that weakness in us because they know they can get us to do things, because that's kind of what we do, right? And as someone who's trying to recover from this, when I was researching for this video, I was like, yes, it is true, because I found myself in these situations where people take advantage. But it's because I really have a hard time with people not liking me and not being comfortable. I want to create that in other people, which is my own struggle, but that can make us more vulnerable to manipulation. So it's something to be aware of. If you find yourself needing a lot of outside validation, feeling like you really need to be liked by other people, maybe you're like me and you struggle with people-pleasing behavior, get into therapy to better navigate that, figure out where it's coming from and heal. Or also something that is incredibly helpful for those of us who struggle with this is setting boundaries. Understanding that it's okay to tell someone what they cannot do or cannot say, and then acting as a result of that. Number 3, you have a tough time saying no. And this connects nicely off of the last one, because if we are people pleasers, we have to be liked, we're going to have a hard time saying no. And that's because we can feel like no lets people down, right? We can worry that they're not going to be able to find someone else to do this. We can be guilt tripped. We can feel like we're always the responsible ones, right? We are overly responsible. And so if we struggle with this, people who are manipulative are going to take advantage of that. They're going to lean in and be like, I know they won't say no. I can always get them to do what I need. Some ways that we can better manage this is that we can practice being more assertive. Learn how to speak up for ourselves. Say, I don't have the time. Thanks for thinking of me. One of my favorite outs is thank you so much for thinking of me, but I'm not available. Feels better than just flat out no. So maybe find some phrases that feel more kind and caring and warm, or more authentic to who you are, so that you can more easily use them. Also, get better at things. I know this sounds kind of weird, but when we struggle to say no, that often means that we don't have a high level of self-esteem. We maybe don't think very highly of ourselves or our situation or in our abilities. And so if we can practice doing something that we're kind of good at and get better, or spend more time doing the things that we are good at, we will slowly build a healthy self-esteem. And that will allow us to feel more empowered and more able to say no when we need to. Number 4, you overlook red flags. When we overlook warning signs and bad behavior, this can make us more vulnerable to being manipulated. And I find this issue to be true for a lot of us who have any trauma in our past. If we grew up in a household that was essentially full of red flags, then those things feel normal. Or like, hey, people yell at each other all the time. Or it's normal for people to cuss you out when you don't do what they asked, right? We can get in this kind of situation where we think that the bad behavior is normal. And so when we encounter someone else who's doing it, we overlook it because we're like, that's what's to be expected. I also find this can come out of kind of the shame that often occurs with trauma. If we think something's wrong with us inherently, like we're broken on the inside, then when people treat us poorly, we can think that that's like all we deserve, or that that's just the way relationships are because that's all we can get, right? And I feel like this puts us in a very vulnerable position, a very potentially exploited position, because then people can do whatever and we like move on, next thing, like it's no big deal. If we find ourselves struggling with this, it can be helpful to have a trusted person. Now, if we have a ton of trauma in our past, we maybe struggle with connection, but that's where a therapist can come in. But if we have like old, friends that we grew up with, or maybe family members that aren't abusive or harmful, people who are helpful and loving, we can have them weigh in on situations. We can ask them, hey, this kind of felt a little off to me. What do you think? Or we can tell them about a relationship that we're maybe struggling with and get their perspective. This can allow us to get back in touch with what are red flags, especially in therapy. If we can heal from the past trauma, we can be better able to recognize maybe some of those hurtful and abusive behaviors earlier on, and get us to a place where we can trust our own instincts. But I do recognize that at the beginning, it can be really difficult to trust our instincts, and it's going to be easier for us to reflect it back to somebody, talk to somebody we trust about it, and get their perspective first before we act on it. And that's okay too. That's why a therapist is there. That relationship is sacred for a reason, because they can help us maybe see the things that we aren't able to see. Number 5, you struggle with low self-esteem. If we don't think very highly of ourselves, we're going to look outward for validation and support, affirmations, compliments, even guidance on decisions. And when we're looking outwards because we don't have any internal direction, that makes us incredibly vulnerable to being manipulated, because other people out in the world don't always have our best interest. And if we don't have like our own gut reaction to check back on, we can be doing things that don't align with who we are or our values. And so, of course, people who are manipulative will find this weakness and exploit it. And so it's best if we kind of understand that this is happening. If we do like shit talk ourselves a lot or think really poorly about ourselves, we're going to want to check in on that. We're going to want to bridge statement it, right? Notice the thoughts you're having, challenge them slightly. I'm not talking toxic positivity. It doesn't help for us to jump from I'm stupid and ugly to I'm the most intelligent person and I'm a model. Our brain's not going to believe that. We have to slowly introduce these new thoughts, starting with maybe, it's possible that I'm not as stupid or ugly as I think. I still think I am, but maybe it's not quite as intense. That's a good bridge statement. So we can do that, or be around people who are supportive and loving. That can also really help. I know that's an external thing, but being around people who are supportive, caring, doing their own thing can allow us to thrive and grow as well. Number 6, you avoid conflict. When we're conflict averse, people can sense it. This can mean that we have a fear of asserting ourselves or standing up for someone or our own stance, and people see that. We can be very passive and we can be taken advantage of. If people know that we're a pushover or that we don't like when people raise their voices, all they have to do to get us to do something is raise their voice or be kind of more of a bully, and we will kowtow, right? We'll give in because we don't want that conflict. And while I agree, I do not like conflict myself, being that passive does make us more vulnerable to manipulation. It can mean that we go along with someone's plans, even if we don't agree, just to avoid the conflict, right? We can find ourselves doing things that we don't want to do, maybe even dangerous or risky things, because the person that we'd have to say no to is a little too scary. And so pay attention to just how conflict averse you are. I honestly, personally, am not a huge fan of conflict either. But there is a healthy place for it. When we feel like our rights or our values are being infringed upon, or someone's not respecting our boundaries, it's okay to be assertive. We don't have to be aggressive. We don't have to fight. Someone can choose to initiate that. But our power lies in our ability to speak up for ourselves and sit with the discomfort of maybe having someone else be upset about it. This is something we can practice in therapy too. I used to role play with my therapist when I was a teenager because I had a real hard time with conflict. And she would be like, what if I said, I can't believe you'd say that? Like lashed out, got really loud. And she'd be like, how does that feel? And I was like, I want to run away. I hate this. And it was good practice for me to start getting comfortable in that discomfort, in that it's not going to be the end of the world if someone gets mad. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not going to get in trouble, right? Recognizing our strengths, recognizing our resources, knowing that conflict isn't going to be the end of everything. And a lot of it might have to do with trauma processing as well. But notice if your aversion to conflict is leading you into situations and into like picking up extra shifts at work, doing things that you don't want to do. Because if so, that's something we should work on. Number 7, you're too trusting. When we trust in people who haven't built it up with us, they haven't proven that they're trustworthy, this leaves us wide open for manipulation. Remember, trust is something that has to be earned. I mean, we can believe in the good in people. I always like to believe in the good in people. But if they prove me wrong, I try to believe them the first time, right? If someone new in my life breaks my trust or does something hurtful, that's a good indicator for the future, right? We have to consider these things. And if we find ourselves being a little naive, I see this a lot with my patients and members of our community talk about it who have been through childhood trauma, right? When we act in childish ways, sometimes we can leave ourselves open to manipulation because we trust up front really quickly and without them giving us a reason to do it. So just pay attention. Do you always believe in the good in people, even when those around you tell you that's not a good person? Pay attention to that. Or if you notice like, hey, I'm the only friend this person has, that's something that I wish I knew earlier in life, is if someone that you're a new friend with says, yeah, I used to have some friends, but I don't have any good friends now, or like, you're my only girlfriend or my only guy friend, like that might not be a good sign. Let's be a little curious. Let's be a little slow to warm on this. It doesn't mean they aren't a good person, but we should be a little cautious. Because I have to tell you, in my life, when I've encountered a new girlfriend who's like, yeah, I don't really have any good friends. I have some that like live, far, far away, like they have to fly to see them. Yeah, my best friend lives like in New York and we're in LA. Come to find out that they, are super manipulative or always picked fights with people or lied a lot, right? And that's why their close friends that live nearby aren't friends anymore. And so we have to give trust time to grow, and people have to prove that they're deserving of it, just as we do in our relationships, right? I wouldn't expect you to trust me if I haven't shown you that I am trustworthy. So let's give it time to grow and develop as we get to know each other. It shouldn't be something that's just given up front. Remember, it's okay to set boundaries, say no, and protect your own well-being. You deserve relationships that are based on mutual respect, not manipulation. If you're struggling with any of these issues, consider reaching out for support. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content on mental health and personal growth.